Board of Police Commissioners meeting today. We acknowledge that we are on traditional lands of the Treaty 4 territory, a treaty signed with 35 First Nations across southern Saskatchewan with parts of Alberta and Manitoba, and the original lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, and Nakota on the homeland of the Métis Nation. The City of Regina owes its strength and vibrancy to these lands and the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory, as well as settlers from around the world who continue to be welcomed here and call Regina home. Can I have someone please move to approve the public agenda? Thank you. Commissioner Patton, I will call the question. Is there anyone opposed? It's carried. Thank you very much. Can I have someone please have a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting held on April 30th, 2024? Thank you. Commissioner Bither, any errors or omissions? Seeing nothing, call the question. Anyone opposed? That's carried. The first report today, PO 24-13, biometrics monitoring the health and safety of detainees in custody. Chief Sheikh, could you please introduce the report?
Yes, it's my pleasure, and Staff Sergeant Pierre Bouchard, who's done all the work, will introduce her.
Thank you very much. Sergeant Deschênes, please go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Staff Sergeant Pierre Bouchard, and I'm going to be speaking to you today about the monitoring of health and safety of our detainees through biometric monitoring. I'll provide you a little bit of landscape, or a Canadian landscape, of detainee deaths in Canada here, and by some headlines, and these are all Canadian. Kelowna Court here. Got overlooked, says brother of a man who died in custody. Family of Mi'kmaq woman who died in Nova Scotia jail sues province for negligence. Family sues OPP, others, for more than $2 million after woman dies in Sudbury, Ontario. Ashley Smith's family sues over death in prison. Father calls for accountability after son dies in Grand Prairie RCMP custody. Dozens of people arrested for intoxication have died in police holding cells. These are their stories. So they are beginning to be collective and class actions. Edmonton Police Constable, 2 former community peace officers charged in holding cell death. Now there's some criminal accountability. And we had a death last August in our detention center. Police watchdog investigating Regina in custody death. And this was in August of 2023. That death has been deemed non-criminal, non-culpable. However, there will be a coroner's inquest and there'll be questions asked as to why it happened and what could Regina Police Service do to mitigate this in the future. So in our detention center down in our cells, we've got 34 cells. They're broken up into male cells, female cells, and youth cells. In 2023, we triaged 7,649 detainees. The community always demands the utmost accountability and transparency with everything that we do. In our cells, we do 15-minute personal checks, so in-person checks. They're broken up the initial triage and placed in cells and youth cells. In 2023, we triaged 7,649 detainees. I think I said that already. The community always demands the utmost accountability and transparency with everything that we do. In our cells, we do 15-minute personal checks, so in-person checks. They're broken up the initial triage and placed in cells and youth cells.
We get to hear it twice.
In 2023, we triaged 7,649 detainees.
We'll have to call someone just
I think I said that already. The community always demands the utmost accountability and transparency with everything that we do. In our cells, we do 15-minute personal checks.
Okay.
Okay, I think we're good. So with our cell checks, we will do visual checks every 15 minutes, and that is documented through a software. We'll be able to identify someone lying, what side they're lying on, if they're awake, if they're agitated, whether they are sleeping covered or uncovered. When you look at this photo, I see a few things here. So I see someone who could be sleeping. I also see a detainee that could be ingesting some type of contraband under that blanket. I could see someone in medical distress, or someone who's had hypertension and is in medical distress at that point. I could see someone who is overdosing at that point. And I could also see someone who is not living, who is a decedent under that blanket. So with 15-minute checks, our detention staff, which is a sergeant, a corporal, a special constable, and a full-time medic, which we implemented a couple years ago with each shift, they have to physically look at that detainee, whether or not they are in fact breathing or there's vitals. And it's sometimes very difficult with the way they are lying down, whether they're under a blanket or whether they're clothed. So there's that challenge of identifying whether someone is in fact doing well. So how do we support our detention staff to ensure that death is mitigated in our detention center? We have to improve the ability to monitor our detainees in our care, and those 15-minute walk-bys are at times insufficient. If there is a way that we could identify those vitals of that detainee without disturbing them or without any wearables, this is where the biometric monitoring comes into play. We have seen an increase in contraband coming into our detention center, or drugs being concealed on a person during intake. There's also evidence of usage at times after they are released, and this is due to the concealment of such drugs. In August, or last summer, myself and a member of the Information Services Tech, Matthew Carlton, we toured several organizations within the Western provinces to determine what other organizations are doing well and what are we doing well as well. We learned that in Edmonton Police Service, they did a trial for a biometric software or technology that monitored a detainee's vitals and movement remotely. This was a pilot project in Edmonton, and I got to give credit to Edmonton for their innovative solutions at that time. So it was a 4 or 5 week pilot, and they had not implemented that live until March, which is when we had implemented as well. In speaking with the supplier, it's Xander Cardian out of Edmonton, or excuse me, Toronto. Their vendor is Global Services, or GT Global Services. We were able to implement this technology in our detention center with the support of Chief Sheikh and our executive committee on March 19th. This monitoring system is non-wearable. There's no bodily integrity issues. It is mounted to the ceiling or at some point or someplace in the cell with a tamper-proof box. What we are able to do is identify an abnormal increase or an abnormal decrease of those vitals, so those the heart rate and the respiratory rate, and also movement. We are able to take those thresholds, so identify a top threshold of that the respiratory rate or the heart rate, and a lower threshold. And if that person's vitals went above or below that threshold, then an alarm would be sounded in our work area down for our detention NCOs and our medics, and they would be able to engage that medic to go assess that detainee physically. So this is the screen that our NCOs and our medics will view or have access to in our detention center. It identifies the cells. There's no names associated to each cell. It essentially is a cell number, and the white is unoccupied and the green is occupied. And in this screen, you'll be able to see their respiratory rate and their heart rate. The benefits of the biometric monitoring system, obviously, is there's early detection of medical distress. So we're not waiting until someone has succumbed to their medical distress. We're able to be identified at the time where they're declining to a point where they can still be attended to. There's no additional staffing requirements that are required with the biometric monitoring. It's essentially the equipment and the software. We're able to detect those vitals through clothing, through blankets, so if they have a blanket covering them, if they happen to have the mattress over top of them. Privacy compliance. We've done a privacy impact assessment, so a PIA, and this was evaluated as low risk. So there's no name associated. We're not able to identify who is in that cell. It's independent software, independent software that would not be able to link to that specific person who is in that cell. We're able to customize to the specific person. So if we have a detainee that comes in with hypertension or COPD or high blood pressure, the medics are able to adjust that threshold so that there's not that alarm being activated on their normal baseline. So we're specifically to that cell, we can increase that threshold or decrease that threshold for that specific individual. We're also able to access post-incident analytics. So if there was an incident in our detention center, we'd be able to provide that to CERT, and they'd be able to look at the analytics and essentially view from the time of intake to the time of the incident what that person's heart rate and their respiratory rate and their movement was. Another important advantage of this technology is the reduced detention staff and strain burnout. So you can imagine this is a high liability area for the Regina Police Service. And our detention center staff, they have a high responsibility to ensure the care and the well-being of the detainees. That stress that they carry, not knowing if there is someone who in fact is in medical distress, and in that next 15-minute check, they're going to identify someone who has succumbed to an injury or an incident. That stress, that reduction of stress is paramount. So in this screen here, there's two cells, and this is specifically in our detention center. So you have someone who's covered and who's not covered. So in the bottom screen, you can see there's the green that's occupied, and in this situation, there'd be an alarm that would be activated if one of those 2 in 21 or 20 or 22, their vitals go above or below that threshold. When you click on the analytics of that specific cell, we're able to go to that. So this was cell 20. So that person in cell 20 at that moment in time has a beats per minute heart rate of 94 and a respiratory rate of 30. And those lines on the bottom, the waveform, that's actually moving from right to left, and it shows the actual breath rate in real time of that detainee. In this slide, what you'll see here is 4 cells, and this is real-time recording of our detention center. So in the top left, you've got a detainee who is covered by a blanket, and this is a common position that we'll find our detainees in. And they're covered and they're seated, and they are either passed out or sleeping in a seated position, and they're crouched over. It's very difficult to identify if someone is in fact breathing in that position. The top right, there's a person in a black t-shirt. They're lying down uncovered. In cell 12 in the bottom left, they're covered completely by blanket, lying down, and again another person in the bottom right. And you have the corresponding biometrics on the right of those specific cells. So you know at that time, in that specific time, the detainees are well, or there's not anyone in medical distress at that point. So if I wanted to identify in that cell, that top left, that person who's been seated in that position for a lengthy period of time, I would go to their specific cell, activate their cell in the sense that I'm switching over the software to read that specific cell or provide those analytics. And it'll give me a real-time reading of that person in the top left who's seated in that position as 70 beats per minute and 23 respiratory rates per minute. So I know that that person right now is doing well and they're alive and they're not seated in a position where they're asphyxiated or having some type of medical distress. Below there, I can zoom into, if you call it that, into their specific time while they are in cells. So at the beginning, so they come in, I can see their heart rate and their respiratory rate and their movement for the entire duration of while they're in cells. So I know that that person has been well and is alive, and if I wanted to determine or identify how long they've been in that seated position, I can zoom into that position on the screen, and those are 5-minute increments. So I know that they have been in that position for at least 20 to 25 minutes. And they've had a heart rate and a respiratory rate, which is a safe heart rate and respiratory rate. So as a detention NCO or the staff down in detention, they know that that person is well, they're sleeping, and they have a heart rate and a respiratory rate that is in a safe zone. A couple testimonials. So we went live with it on March 19th. A few days after going live, we had an incident where the detention NCO had an alarm activated, and it was a respiratory alarm. And the thresholds that the medics had on the system was 30 respiratory rates per minute. So there was an alarm that went off as 34 respiratory rates per minute. The detention NCO went and met with, or not met with, they attended to that cell. At that specific time, the medic was away from the detention center at the shipping receiving, so she was not directly in that cell for those 2 or 3 minutes. So the detention NCO went to the cell, knocked on the window, did not get a response, had the cell door open, pulled down the cover, and I'll just go back a minute here. That person that is in that cell was healthy when they came in, or there's no apparent medical distress. She was intoxicated, but this was a normal triage. She was searched appropriately based on the intake and the officers. She was put in that cell, and within that 50 minutes, there would not have been another check physically until 50 minutes, and every 50 minutes after that. So this would be a common position that the detainees are in, and when they do their physical checks, they would observe this person as healthy, alive, and sleeping. However, in this situation, the alarm was activated and the detention NCO initiated his response. He pulled back the blanket and the female was unresponsive. He could not locate any vitals, no heart rate, no respiratory rate. He called for the medic, who at that time was now down attending to the cell. He began chest compressions. She began doing what she needed to do for her life-saving engagement. And this female the vitals came back with this female. EMS attended, transported her to RGH, where she was tended to, and she's well. So this, without that monitoring, that biometric monitoring, she likely would have been a decedent after that incident, and we may not have realized that she was a decedent for several hours after intake. Another incident on May 9th, a male had been triaged, healthy, sober. He had identified some health concerns that he was on medication for, hypertension and some high blood pressure. He was triaged into that cell 20, as you can see. Within 20 minutes of triage, again, the respiratory alarm went off. At this point, it was 36 respiratory rates per minute. The medic attended. She assessed him immediately, could not locate any vitals, called for the AED and some support. She began chest compressions. She activated the AED, which cycled through, and she was able to regain vitals from this male, and he was transported to RGH, where he was assessed for his heart disease and another successful engagement of that biometric monitoring. So when you look at the implementation of this biometric monitoring since March 19th, we've had 3, in fact, another female, another incident similar to the first one. So we've had 3 potential saves, life-saving notifications for this biometric monitoring. When you look at the cost is significantly less than the Regina Police Service attending a coroner's inquest for a death. For Regina Police Service to attend a coroner's inquest, it ranges from $80,000 to $100,000, and that's not including civil liability. The cost of 10 cells is less than $50,000, and the monitoring cost is less than $100 per cell per month. So significantly less cost than even just one death inquest. Our strat plan identifies our community and our service as goals, and then within our community, obviously this fits within community safety and well-being. It's very obvious as how this fits within that mandate. The trust and accountability. So we have a moral and ethical obligation from the Regina Police Service to ensure care of the detainees that come into our detention center, not only by the detainees themselves, but by their family, their mothers, their fathers, their brothers and sisters. We have to ensure that we can provide and the safety and the well-being, and that they are able to attend court or be released without any type of incident. And that is our obligation. Within our service, we have a healthy and engaged workforce, so the stress reduction from the staff in detention center, and obviously the organizational excellence. We are one of the first organizations in Canada, police organizations, to implement this type of technology in our detention center. And I can say that since the implementation of March 19th, we've met probably with between 15 to 20 other police organizations from coast to coast who have expressed interest in this type of technology. And obviously, we're pleased to share experiences with other organizations, but certainly proud to be one of the first in Canada to have implemented this type of technology and to support the detainees and the staff that we have in our detention center. Thank you. Questions?
Thank you very much, Staff Sergeant Bouchane, for the work that you've done here, the great work that you've done. I will open it up for questions. Commissioner Patton, go ahead.
Can you tell me how many people on average do you have in cells? I realize there's some extreme days and some quiet days, but what would your average be in cells?
Certainly. We have days where we're very close to capacity, so we have 34 cells, and there are times when we have perhaps 1 or 2 cells available. I would say on average, we're over a dozen. We could have anywhere from a dozen to 15 detainees at any one time on average.
And so is the 10, is that enough for now, or is that something you plan on working at?
Well, certainly we would like to have our entire detention center outfitted with the biometrics, but we have to be obviously cognizant of financials for this. We would like to have more cells, but at this time, 10 cells was what was approved, and we had the funds available for this, so we did not acquire or request new funds. This came out of the support from our information services budget. So currently, the budget that we have, we were able to utilize those funds to implement these 10 cells.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Patton. Anyone else? Commissioner Bittner, go ahead.
Staff Sergeant, thank you for the report and excellent work on this one. I heard earlier that there's 34 cells and currently only 10 have it, and just like my colleague have asked, how is it prioritized that who goes to these cells? Like how do you determine that?
Sure. So each detainee is triaged through our detention center, and they're assessed by a medic. We have a medic who is on staff 24 hours a day. So in consultation between the medic and the detention sergeant or the detention NCO, they will determine whether or not there's this person or this detainee is appropriate for a monitored cell. There are times where there are no precursors, there's no drug use, there's no severe intoxication, or nothing that would indicate the need for a biometric cell. We certainly don't want to fill all those biometric cells with very healthy people or apparently very healthy people, and then not have the ability to put someone who is in need of that biometric cell.
And what is the typical time frame you can have a detainee in the cell? Like a couple of days or a couple of hours?
No, it could be, so we have the ability to hold someone for 24 hours a day until they are remanded by the Justice of the Peace or transported to court. So we could have someone in our detention center for up to 24 hours. There are occasions when we have someone remanded over the weekend from Friday to Monday, which is certainly not an appropriate place for a remanded prisoner, but there's mitigating, there's always situations where once they're remanded, some of the correctional facilities don't have the capacity to take the remanded prisoner, so we could easily have someone over the weekend or for a period of 2 days until they can be received in court.
My last question is, as you mentioned, there are 10 cells have these biometrics and the others aren't. Do you feel any risks with that could be associated, or you think that is the right approach, or that's where we need to end up with? Like, is there any plan to expand that to the other cells as well?
There is a plan. At this point, we don't have anything to indicate that we have the funds available for the additional cells. The 10 cells that we have, it was broken up with 6 males, 2 females, and 2 youth. Certainly, if we could implement this in all the cells, that would be the best approach. But we have to be responsible with the, fiscally with our funds as well, with the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Bittner. Mayor Masters, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair. Thank you, Staff Sergeant. In terms of the information that's collected from each of the individual cells, how long do you retain that information?
We have mirrored the same retention as the video and audio recording of each cell. So at this point, it's 2 weeks. Certainly, it could be even much less, because if there's not an incident, we would not require those analytics. but we could retain it indefinitely through the software, but as an organization, we have reduced that to mirror the retention of the video and audio recording, which is 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you. Do you mind sharing a little bit about the research that you did in order to get here?
The research? Sure. So after our death in August, certainly we looked at ways that we could improve the detainee care and how we could be notified expeditiously of a medical distress. We weren't aware of this software until we met with our partners in Alberta, where they had done a pilot project for something similar. This technology is primarily used for senior living complexes where they would be, the nursing staff or the staff on site would be identified by a vacant room, so they'd be notified that an elderly person has vacated the room or there's no movement for a significant period of time. And also if someone is sleeping, they'd be able to, and they go into medical distress while they're sleeping, they would be notified of that breach of threshold, either above or below those thresholds. So we felt that this type of technology would be appropriate for our detainees based on the medical need and that the high-risk personnel that come into our detention center. I don't anticipate that this is going to go anywhere. It's not going to be removed from ourselves. It's only going to improve. And based on the response from other organizations, I would imagine that across Canada, the other organizations are going to follow suit.
Okay, thank you for that. One last question through the chair. Just to be clear, the 15-minute physical checks that your staff do in cells continues even with the monitoring?
This will not replace those 15-minute physical checks. Those 15-minute physical checks are so important, and we will alternate from our medical staff to the detention NCOs or the detention staff. So we will have a medical in-person view or check and a police check as well. So it's not exclusively the medics who do the cells. It's alternating between medical staff and police staff for obvious reasons.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Again, I think on behalf of the board, I think it's vital work that you've done here. And, to be one of the first in Canada to kind of take this on. And I think you've indicated from, after having, had that happen in cells, it was something that you've looked into. So truly appreciate it. And I think, to highlight, I know in reading the report, part of the early detection is imperative, but ensuring safety within our community, both outside but also inside our cells. And I think it was indicated which fosters a more humane and compassionate approach to detention management. So truly want to say thank you for that really, really important work and great work. So a great Regina news story for Regina Police. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so can I have someone actually move this report? I did not ask that. Mayor Masters, thank you very much. I'll call the question. Is there anyone opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, we will move on to PO 24-14, Regina Police Service Strategic Plan, Annual Report 2023. Chief Shake, can I please have you introduce the report?
Well, first, thank you, Pierre, for that comprehensive update with the biometrics. And I hand you now over to Amy Belfour, who will go through the report. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm pleased to present the Regina Police Service 2023 Annual Report, which highlights our progress towards achieving the goals in our strategic plan. Our strategic plan lasts for another 2.5 years. It will conclude in 2026. The planning for the plan started in 2022, and at that time we maintained our commitment to report back annually on those activities and goals that we had and how we've done over the last year. So I won't read the report. It's a fairly long report, but I would like to highlight a few things. The year focused really on aligning service improvements and wanted to focus specifically on 2 goals. One, to serve our community better, and one, to improve our service and the well-being of our folks inside these walls. This particularly came with consultation with our community, who very eloquently said that they wanted us to focus on collaboration. And again, just in April, when we met with them, it was the same theme. So it's been fairly consistent. Our plan is centered really on those 2 goals. We have a number of activities for both, so I'll highlight just a few. There are 47 activities in the strategic plan report for 2023. specific to our community and 77 that we focused on to improve our service. One example is a strong partnership we forged with the Saskatchewan Health Authority. The collaboration aimed to reduce officer wait times at hospitals, demonstrating teamwork that benefits both the service and ultimately improves public safety for citizens of Regina. So this is not just an initiative that is focused on mental health, but also relieving our custody of folks at the hospital so we can get back in our patrol cars and respond to community. Another example is the introduction of our second PADS dog, Sinclair. Many of you will remember Merlot, who is happy in retirement, and we were successful in November of having Sinclair join us to provide crucial support to victims of crime. And of course, our air support unit, which you're very well aware of, which we report on monthly. The report also showcases our dedication to continuous improvement related to technology, and Staff Sergeant Bouchane mentioned that, obviously in our detention center, but also some cybersecurity awareness and enhancements. The plan remains a vital roadmap for us over the next 2.5 years, and we will continue to develop business plans, coordinate that with our budget asks, and report back to the board annually. The full report is available for your review. It will be available on our website. And other than that, I'll leave it open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions? Anyone have any questions? No? Okay. Okay, go ahead, Mayor Masters. You may. There you go.
Thank you, Ms. Belfer. Is there anything that we're offside of in terms of where we thought we'd be when we set the strategic goals? Is there something that we've missed?
I don't think there's something that we missed. I think we've had some challenges specifically related to some of our technology. We have a number of initiatives that have been particularly difficult to achieve with our current budget. We do have a number of focus points that we want to achieve with our community, specifically related to community policing. It was pretty evident in 2023, in addition to 2024, just in April, that the community still wants to see more of us. They want to see us out at all of their events, but they also want us to continue to work with them specifically on initiatives that are challenging our whole community. And so I think we still have a lot of work to do there. I don't think we've missed anything, but I think we definitely have got our toe in the water and need to focus on that in the next 2 years.
Thanks for that. Through the chair, is there anything in the report, and I know you've highlighted the aerial support unit, as well as, again, what Staff Sergeant Bouchane just highlighted as it relates to the investment in technology. Is there anything that you want to bring to the board's attention coming into budget? You just named technology. Why don't you be a bit more specific?
I'm going to leave that to the chief to answer.
Chief Farouk?
Chief Sheikh, go ahead.
Well, I think, I mean, we need to evaluate exactly where we are with everything we want to do. If it's community policing, Amy mentioned community policing. I think we can do a lot more community policing. So what we're looking at doing there is setting up neighbourhood watch schemes. So depending on how much that's going to cost, there may be a budget request for that, but I don't think it's going to be anything too significant. And I'd like to see neighbourhood watch schemes across all wards in Regina. So again, that will be a budget ask for some, but we may be able to use some of our budget or our community initiative budget to use that. So I think if in line with our strat plan, and community policing is a vital part of that, and some of the work we're already doing is phenomenal. That the events that we attend, you know, I've never seen the amount of events that we attend here anywhere, and so it's remarkable all the events we go to. But I think the big ask at some point will be to ensure that we've got sufficient resilience out on the streets. And I know obviously we couldn't hire 6 additional staff that we wanted to this year. So the more staff that we can hire to get out to attend community events, to maybe create a downtown core team. I know we've got the ARO program coming up. So there will be some ask, but at the moment for me is to ensure that we deliver on our strat plan and we get more resources out there to help, but at the same time that we work in collaboration and partnership with our communities so they help us help them reduce, prevent crime.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Masters. Any others? Commissioner Patton, go ahead.
Ms. Belfer, can you tell me, this might be either for you or for the executive, How do you feel that the frontline officers are relating to the strat plan? I think it speaks well to us, but I'm not sure how it speaks to them. And are you getting good indication of that?
I can tell you that every year they have a promotion process where they have to study the strategic plan, write business plans at budget time. They have to align those plans with the strategic goals. From the front line of patrol, I'm not going to speak about how they feel, but they do participate in our community, or not our community, sorry, our employee engagement survey, which we just conducted. We don't have the results yet. So they've had their opportunity to give feedback. I think from the mid-management supervisor role, this is more of a focus than maybe on the front line, because they're the ones writing our business plans and that sort of thing. The comment the chief made about hiring more resources, what really affects the front line is our patrol workload assessment, which we do every year, and the board is aware of that. And we're bringing that to executive in a couple of weeks. So they will be looped in on that as well.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Patton. Seeing no further questions, can I have someone please move the report? Thank you. Commissioner Yovashelsky. All right, I'll call the question. Is there anyone opposed? Okay, that's carried. Thank you very much. Great work. Thank you very much, Ms. Belfer. PO 24-15, the variance report as of April 30th, 2024. Chief Sheikh, could you please introduce this report?
Yes, thank you, Amy, for that last presentation. And I'll hand you over to Tracy Raisin for the variance.
Good morning. I'm here to report on our budget variance as of April 30th. As you know, a few years ago, we made a commitment to present our variance publicly twice a year. So this is our first update for you for 2024. So I'll begin with the operating budget. So 33% of the year is now complete, and we've spent 31% of our operating budget. We're currently forecasting a small surplus of around $200,000. That surplus is really coming from an increase in provincial funding. As you're aware that the Regina Police Service's financial year is a calendar year, so January to December. The provincial government's year is April to March. So lots of times what happens is when they set their budget, they don't notify us till April or May, and at that point we've already set our budget. So that's why I have to show it as a variance, because it wasn't signed by December of last year. So in regards to overtime, you'll see there's a slight increase in cost recovered overtime. What that is officers assisting other agencies with investigations, but all of that overtime is cost recovered. So you'll see it under expenses and in the revenue. In regards to the capital budget, there are 6 categories of capital programs. So we have things like asset management, communications, emergency services equipment, facilities, fleet, information technology. And some of the highlights of the capital plan this year include our regular fleet replacement, facility furniture, the 911 telephone system, and as always, information technology, hardware, and software. So currently the forecast for all those capital programs are on budget. And that concludes my variance report for April 30th.
Thank you very much, Ms. Raisin. Any questions from the Commission? Mayor Masters, go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. The NG 911 telephone system, how long has this been in the capital budget?
It's been in the capital budget for a few years as we're waiting for the approvals to go through. Of course, it applies to across other agencies. We are getting all of our infrastructure and things in place. The capital project for that should be completed this year. We have some funding from last year. That was the higher amount, so that will carry forward.
Okay.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. In your best estimation, you're suggesting that what we've got approved in the budget will be spent this year, the $5.6 million in capital?
Yes, it will.
Okay, all right. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Masters. Any other questions? Go ahead. Commissioner Nowosielski.
I assume the drug screening devices, DSDs, are a continued rollout of the program.
That's correct.
Okay. And is the intent to have a device in every kind of patrol vehicle that's out?
Yeah, and the drug screening devices, we really have an ongoing capital amount. Some of them need to be replaced, some of them need to be repaired. We always keep that $25,000 year to year. We do get some funding from SGI sometimes, so that as well helps, but yes.
Are we finding relative success, seeing that this is more of a kind of a novel device or equipment, as opposed to the alcohol screening devices?
I can let one of the superintendents answer that.
Who would like to take that?
I'm not sure we can speak to that if it's novel, but I know it's being used. We're seeing more and more drug use with drivers, so we are using it. We'll have to just get back to the board on terms of the actual numbers once we have better stats, but we're definitely seeing more use in terms of drug related to impaired driving. So drug-related driving is increasing, of course, and we're seeing that when more stops. But we do have the DRE program, which we also employ as well. So.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Novoselsky. Go ahead, Commissioner Bither.
Thanks for your report. Just on the cost recovered overtime, is this the full amount that was charged under the overtime and 100% was recovered? Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing no further questions, can I have a motion to receive and file this report? Thank you. Commissioner Patton, call the question. Anyone opposed? Okay, that's carried. Thank you very much. So we'll do the PO 24-16, the monthly crime stats for April 2024. Chief Sheikh, I'll ask you to introduce the report.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Tracy, first. This is just a quick summary. You've got the data in front of you. I'll just give you a quick overview and some good news of where we've done some positive or proactive arrest and outcomes. So April 24 showed an increase of 8% of crimes against the persons, while crimes against property saw a decrease of 13.1%. There's also been a decrease of 8.9% in robberies, a decrease of 17.6% of theft under 5,000, and a decrease of 2.5% of total B&E reports. However, arson has seen a significant increase, and majority of those arsons, or 71% of those, are trash bins, majority in Central District. So some work that we need to do on that with the city, with the fire, to look at ways to trying to reduce that. And I think those crimes are crimes of opportunities. And again, we have when we did have some arsons in February and March to churches and everything else, we only had one. The good news is that we solved them. But the majority of the arsons that we're having are to trash bins, and we need to look with the city and the fire to come with solutions to try to reduce that. If it means that we have to increase CCTV in the area, but it's got to be something that we can do to try to alleviate that. And then I'll just go through just a summary of some of the good news and results that we had, and I'll break it down to number of offences. Robbery, 19th of April, downtown Regina, which one male was being robbed by a group of others. 2 persons were arrested and charged with robbery and possession of firearm and ammunition. 26th of April, police were dispatched to East Regina business for reports of a robbery. Police located and detained a male, resulting in 5 charges, including robbery with a weapon, resisting arrest, possession of stolen property, carrying a concealed weapon, and wearing disguise with intent. Violent offences. April 7th, police were dispatched to reports of a weapons offence in Central Regina. Police arrived and were able to identify a group, locate the suspect, and charge 1 male with a total of 11 offences. 19th of April, police were dispatched to reports of an injured male who had been shot in the arm. The suspect was arrested and charged with attempt murder and possession of a firearm. April the 28th, police with the use of canine apprehended a male in North Central. He'd concealed a baton, bear mace, and drugs in his person. He was charged with possession and carry of concealed weapon. Stolen vehicles. April 3rd, police were dispatched to a man passed out in a running vehicle. The vehicle was confirmed stolen. The male was charged with possession of stolen property, impaired operation, as well as 4 other charges. April the 8th, police were dispatched to a vehicle with stolen plates, which had collided with several other parked vehicles. Tire deflation device was utilised, result of the vehicle being stopped. A woman was charged with impaired operation and possession of stolen property. April 11th, police were dispatched to North Central report of a suspected stolen vehicle. Police attended, but the suspect had fled on foot. She was apprehended by Canaan and charged with theft, possession of stolen property, breach of conditions, and wanted on several warrants. April 15, members witnessed a stolen vehicle parked with a number of people around it. With assistance of air support, the vehicle was monitored while patrol deployed a tire deflation device. The vehicle ran over the tire deflation device, continued for a short time at speeds close to 100 kilometres an hour. Eventually, the vehicle hit a tree and stopped. The suspect fled but was apprehended by patrol with assistance of air support, subsequently charged with dangerous driving, breach and possession of a stolen vehicle. Then break and enter. April 11th, police were dispatched to Cornwall Centre for a break and enter to several premises. The suspect assaulted mall security but eventually apprehended by the police. He was subsequently charged with attempt break and enter, assault, possession of break and enter tools, resisting arrest and identity fraud. April the 12th, police had been investigating a series of robberies dating back to December 2022. In April 2024, police were able to arrest and charge a 16-year-old with 2 counts of robbery, commercial, and 1 use of imitation firearm during the commission of the offence. Again, in April 17th, police were dispatched to break and enter to a business on Victoria Avenue East. 1 male was arrested and charged with break and enter possession of property obtained by crime. Theft. Police were dispatched to call 2 people trying to break into a vehicle. Suspects were gone when police arrived but quickly located with assistance of air support. After investigation, it was determined that the same 2 males had broken into an apartment in South Regina, damaged the apartment significantly, left the water running when they fled. Police were able to find the location and stop the water, preventing further damage. Both males were charged with break and enter, theft, mischief, and possession of stolen property. And suspicious driving. April 13, a report of dangerous driving was received, and this was quickly tracked by air support. The vehicle was stopped by patrol, resulting in the arrest of a drug dealer from Calgary. Cocaine was in plain sight and seized along with the cash and phones. And traffic stops. RPS conducted 2,000 traffic stops in April, an average of 67 per day. And when you look at January, it was an average of 65, Feb 66, March 68, and obviously April 67. Overdoses. Police responded to 53 overdoses in April 24. Narcan was administered by police 9 times, saving the lives of 7 males, 2 females. There were 13 fatal overdoses in the month of April. And community events linking back into our strat plan. It's really important that, we get involved in the community and we collaborate and we do as much as we can. So just wanted to give a few highlights of some of the stuff that we've done in April. And by the way, this is not an exhausted list. Annual stakeholder breakfast that we held went well, 120 people in attendance. First responder appreciation lunch at Mount Olive Church. Elders Advisory Committee meeting that we held here at the police station. First Nations University of Canada's powwows, ground entries and pipe ceremonies. 3 evening events, iftar events and Eid event for the Muslims that were celebrating Ramadan and celebrating Eid. Flag raising at City Hall for the Sikh Heritage Month and a visit to the Sikh temple. Attended Passover events at the Jewish synagogue. 2 coffee with a cop, 1 at Cornwall Centre and another at Dooney Avenue. And we had our Citizen Police Academy graduation as well during that month. And that's just a quick summary of things that was in April.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Chief Sheikh. That's great. Any other questions? Mayor Masters, go ahead.
Thanks, through the chair. Thanks for a little bit of that recap, Chief. When you're listing off, robberies where report of a person being robbed, the RPS shows up and someone's arrested for the robbery as well as possession of a firearm, does that person stay in remand once they're charged?
It would depend on the circumstances. So the violent offense like that, they would likely be held for the next court appearance, which would be in the 24-hour period. If there are other circumstances, they might not. But generally, in a violent offense like that, they would be what you're calling remanded until their court appearance.
Yeah, detained, I guess.
Yeah, detained sooner than later. So, yeah.
And then once they have their court appearance, what happens normally?
again, case by case, depending on the severity and maybe a history, that they could be remanded then out to the correctional center until a follow-up, or they could be released on conditions from the court to keep the peace, be of good behavior, curfew, et cetera.
Thanks. In terms of the folks who are charged with weapons offenses or firearms or aggravated circumstances, I don't know, like attempted murder when they shoot someone in an arm. Do we have a sense for how many people are released on average in a month? How many people exist in our city that have been released on conditions?
Well, we could get that information for you, but if you're getting to violent offenders, we have a number of dangerous violent offenders in the community that we monitor. We have a unit that's relatively new, that's their priority, the Correction Support Unit or Warrant Apprehension Team. If you remember a year or so ago, we addressed the board with them. So yeah, there are dangerous violent offenders, but we monitor them quite closely to just keep the community safe.
Okay, thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mayor Masters. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you very much for the update, as well as I also need someone to move this report. Mayor Masters, thank you very much. Anyone opposed? Okay, that's carried. Can I have a motion to approve, to move into private session? Thank you. We will recess for 15 minutes, would bring us to, let's see, about 10 after 10. Thank you so much.